Hello everyone and welcome back to this Football Manager 2017 experiment where we see what would happen if you put a transfer embargo on the 5 biggest leagues in Europe. Now last time when we left off, Newcastle had just become 3 times European champions, having missed out on another opportunity to Racing Club de Lens. Wolves also losing twice in the final, Brighton 2 times winners as well, Manchester United no longer appearing in the finals after missing out 3 times there in 4 years. Really disappointing period for them. They've actually been appearing in quite a lot of finals, which I didn't notice before. But Barcelona winning just before Newcastle did. So quite interesting, some of these finals, and hopefully Newcastle will continue to pick up the European Cups going forward. Now today we're going to go forward 5 years for the last time. It'll be the last time we go forward 5 years. After this one, I'm thinking that we'll probably just go right up to the end of the transfer ban and then have a look at how everybody has done since the ban came into place. And then in another part we will go on 5 years after the ban comes to an end and see how the big teams have done once they've started spending money again. Because if we have a look at Barcelona, who have kept competitive, and then look at their finances, you can see they've got an awful lot of cash sitting in the bank there. £344 million and £130 million in the transfer budget, ready to spend as soon as they can. So there is going to be a huge transfer outlay as soon as these clubs are able to do so, and it'll have to see if they challenge the dominance of the likes of Newcastle and Racing Club de Lens, who are dominating in their leagues. But let's go forward 5 years now. We'll work our way through each of the different leagues and then have a look at the European competitions once again. Well, we're going to start with the Italian League, and as you can see, when we left off last time, AC Milan were the champions above City rivals Inter. They won it by 23 points in the end. The following year, Inter did come back, a very tight finish at the top. Dr. Benji will be happy to see Spal up in 3rd place. The following year, Spal actually won the title. So somebody, if you watch Dr. Benji's channel, tell him to call off his career mode, because we have already seen Spal win the Serie A title. Let him know on Twitter if you do watch his show. The following year, Inter Milan did win the title again. Spal finishing all the way down in 12th place, completely dropping out. The next year, Inter won it yet again. Bari finishing 2nd, and then this season again, Inter the winners of Serie A. They have been the dominant team since this experiment started, and Juventus really been struggling. They've been dropping around mid-table all over the place, in the top half normally, but they've just been unable to challenge any sort of real title challenge, which is quite disappointing for them. If we have a look at Inter Milan's other competition performances, starting with the Italian Cup, and then look at who's won this over the past 5 years, you can see very mixed. Inter Milan never won it in the last 5 years. In fact, they haven't won it since this. They've won it once since this experiment started, despite all their league dominance. Really quite interesting that. But going to various different teams, still largely the biggest teams though in Italy. Now, it's not usually a lot of looking at the Portuguese league, but it is worth noting that Braga failed to win the league. They finished 2nd, so maybe we should have a look at the Portuguese league. They dominated so much year after year, finishing 20 odd points clear. But then this season they missed out by 3 points. They only lost 1 game and still didn't win the title, drawing a few too many. And Guimarães, I think is how you pronounce them, they won the Portuguese league, breaking Braga's just decades-long dominance. They won it 11 years in a row, lost it that time, finishing runners-up, and then won it 4 more times. Braga, the undisputed best team in Portugal. Now, France is another place that we've been seeing inherent dominance. It's been Racing Club de Lens who've been winning the title year after year, and they continued it, beating Monaco once more. Then Monaco did manage to come back and win the title before Lens took it again and again and again with 101 points, well clear of Monaco. PSG down in 16th place now. They've really fallen down quite some way. They've not really flirted with relegation until that point, but that is really fascinating. PSG dropping completely down there, but look at this dominance from Lens and Monaco. After that PSG period of dominance, they've completely fallen off now, no longer finishing in the top 3. Racing Club de Lens, definitely the biggest team in France right now, and they have got good finance. Oh, they've got okay finances actually. If we look at their club details and finances, they've got a negative bank balance, so they could really start to be hit quite hard when this when this transfer embargo does come to an end. In Spain, Barcelona were the reigning champions when we left off, but Real Madrid came to win it again the year after that. 1 point between the top 3 teams and a lot of very similar goal difference as well. The following year, Barcelona again coming back and then retaining it by 2 points before Real Madrid won it again. And then Sevilla coming out of nowhere to win the last La Liga title. The first team other than Real Madrid, Barcelona or Bilbao to win the title since Atletico Madrid 15 years ago. Atletico Madrid very much dropping out of the title contention, but they have had a couple of third place finishes now. But really interesting that both Barcelona and Real Madrid have continued to dominate even though they haven't been able to sign players, and they have got an awful lot of cash in their budget waiting to go. £754 million in Real Madrid's bank balance waiting to be spent as soon as they can. For Barcelona, it's a very familiar story as well. They've got a huge amount of cash and they are going to keep spending. I'm not sure the likes of Bilbao will be able to compete when the money comes out. They don't actually have a manager at the moment, and they don't have a lot of money either. £41 million in the bank. A lot of their income is still going to be going on players because they don't have that TV deal. In Germany, we were seeing a lot of dominance from Bayern Munich, and it looks like it carried on in these next 5 years before they actually finished in 3rd place. Stuttgart finished ahead of München Lions, and the following year München Lions won it again before Stuttgart won it again, and Bayern finished in 7th place, falling through the floor in Germany. After so much dominance, they've now gone 3 years without the title. So Bayern with a lot of work to do to come back and get competitive in their league. They, again, another team with £857 million in the bank, ready to spend, but they're still 22 years away from the end of this transfer ban, and things could get sticky for them if they don't get their academy up to scratch. And finally, we have the Premier League, where Brighton won the title by 10 goals the season that we looked at last time. The following year, Huddersfield won the title, 3 points clear of Brighton. Newcastle and Wolves qualifying for the Champions League as well. The following year, we better keep an eye on the relegations actually. Remember, Manchester City got relegated last time. The following year, Everton did get relegated. Then Brighton won the title, 1 point clear of both Newcastle and Huddersfield. Leeds finishing in 4th place, and Liverpool rock bottom of the Premier League. Chelsea down there as well. The following year, Wolves won the title, clear of Huddersfield by a point, Brighton by 2, Barnsley up in 5th place, but Southampton and Swansea going down. The following year, Brighton winning another title, 10 points clear of Huddersfield. Everton and City getting relegated again, City with just 20 points. Horrendous stuff for them. And then the following year, Huddersfield again champions. Wolves, Brighton and Newcastle all qualifying for the Champions League as well, with Barnsley, Arsenal and Derby qualifying for the Europa League. Spurs also qualifying for the Champions League despite finishing 12th. Liverpool getting relegated. I am interested in Manchester City at the moment though, currently managed by Darragh Tuffy from the Republic of Ireland. National reputation. They are rich with that transfer ban still in place. But if we look at their finances, you can see they've got an underwriting sugar daddy, but £961 million ready to spend as soon as they can. Currently sitting in the Championship. They are going to be coming back with real force as soon as they get the opportunity. Manchester United also down there at the moment, still rich despite everything. And if we look at their club details, they've still not been relegated, but they don't have as much cash as Manchester City have. Or do they actually? There's a lot of ones there. Let's have a look. Actually, they do. They have more money. They have £1.1 billion of cash ready to go as soon as they can. So you'll see, I think, that the likes of Brighton might struggle to retain their position as soon as that money comes back in, because their finances are in the red. That is not ideal. Newcastle probably better suited. They are rich. Currently managed by Leon from Brazil. If we look at Newcastle's finances, you can see they have some cash, but not maybe as much as you would think. £30 million in there, so they may struggle as well. I mean, they've not been doing that well even in the current circumstances. When you look at the past winners, Newcastle now haven't won the title in nearly a decade, which is not what we expected when we started this experiment. They've had a few second place finishes, but Brighton, definitely the biggest team in England at the moment, winning 5 titles, 2 in the last 5 years. Huddersfield with a couple as well, and Wolves now with 2 titles to their name. So you can see who the big names are in English football at the moment, but how did they get on in Europe? Well, starting with the Europa League in the quarterfinals, you can see very different teams in here. Hanover, Stuttgart, Villa and Barnsley all getting through to the next round. In the semis, Villa and Barnsley making it into the final. And in the final, it was won by Barnsley. Barnsley, the champions of the Europa League, qualifying for the Champions League. Incredible stuff. The scenes on the streets of Barnsley. The following year, Olympiacos going through. Arsenal, Huddersfield and Schalke all making the next round. In the semis, Huddersfield and Arsenal, the 2 English teams going through, and it was won by Huddersfield, a Europa League title for them as well. The following year, Nuremberg getting through there alongside Leeds, Villarreal, Leverkusen, Anderlecht in there, AC Milan going through, but no English team in the semi-finals. Leverkusen and Nuremberg getting into the final, and it was won by Leverkusen. Disappointment for Nuremberg, unable to make it into the Champions League. The following year, Bilbao, Man United, Leipzig and Lille all making the semi-finals. Ferreira also in here, a new face for us to take a look at. The following year, Lille and Bilbao made it into the final, and it was won by Bilbao, the team who won La Liga quite a few times. And then the following year, it was Spurs, Milan, Barnsley and Real Madrid in there. I love seeing Barnsley's name alongside these teams. In the semi-finals, Barnsley knocked out by AC Milan, Spurs going through. And in the final, Spurs did beat AC Milan. So if we look at the past winners here, you've got the likes of Huddersfield and Barnsley in there. Huddersfield have now won the Europa League 3 times. Absolutely incredible from Huddersfield fans there. They've got a Premier League title or 2 to their name as well, which they will love. But let's have a look at that Champions League. Well, starting at the beginning, and in this quarterfinal stage, Newcastle beat Celtic. Good to see Celtic getting so far. They've not really been popping up all that much. Brighton beating Real Madrid 3-0 on aggregate. Racing Club de Lens also getting through to the semis, and Munchen Lions as well. In the semi-finals, Brighton beat Newcastle on penalties. Brighton really getting the better of Newcastle at the moment. Racing Club de Lens in there as well. 2 giants going up against each other, and Brighton crushed them 4-0. Another European title for Brighton. The following year, Newcastle, Brighton, Wolves and Racing Club de Lens, the same teams year after year. Braga in there as well. In the semis, Newcastle beaten by Brighton again at this stage. Wolves making the final, and it was won by Wolves. Wolves European champions, denying Brighton back-to-back European Cups. The following year, Huddersfield, Bayern, Brighton and Lens all getting through, and Newcastle out of the quarterfinal stage. Huddersfield and Racing Club de Lens in the final. They've knocked out Brighton and Bayern. Can Huddersfield win the European Cup? They can. They win it on extra time. Racing Club de Lens just missing out. The next year, Brighton and Newcastle going through. Huddersfield and Wolves going through. An all-English semi-final. And Wolves and Newcastle go through. Can Newcastle win another European Cup? They can't. Wolves beat them 1-0 at the Santiago Bernabeu. Disappointment for Newcastle fans. It's been another one of those sort of experiments where you expect us to dominate and it just doesn't happen. The following year, 3 English teams making the semi-finals. Brighton, Newcastle and Huddersfield alongside Stuttgart. In the semi-final, Brighton and Stuttgart made it to the final, which was won by Brighton. So you can see, looking at the past winners now, Brighton with 4 European Cups to their name. Wolves now have 2 in there as well. Huddersfield with 1 to their name. And Newcastle with 3 just behind Brighton. And Racing Club de Lens, really unfortunate, they still only have 1 European Cup despite consistently making the semi-finals. Really disappointing for them. I'm just checking, I don't think Huddersfield ever won the European Cup, and they certainly didn't. I know they won the Premier League back in the 30s, and the European Cup only stretches back to the 50s or so. So that is their first European title, Huddersfield. They are having a great time in this experiment. You can see their first European Cup, their first Club World Championship, and nearly 100 or so years after winning the Premier League 3 years in a row. They won it 2 more times. 3 Europa Leagues in there as well, 3 European Super Cups, 4 FA Cups now, 3 of them recently. Just incredible stuff. A couple of EFL Cups as well. Doing very, very well, Huddersfield, and really, really pushing themselves on. A great little story for them there. Now, one last scene that I want to take a look at is the world transfer screen. So when we look at the transfer screen, it's mostly just to see where the big transfers are going. If we drop back 1 year to 37 and have a look at June in 2037, you can see Newcastle with the biggest world transfer. Stade Brestois, Racing Club de Lens, Derby, Norwich, Aston Villa, Salzburg, Tigres in there as well. Celtic with a big transfer. But obviously it's the sort of teams you would expect. The following month in July, £50 million spent by Brighton for a player from Leeds. Newcastle raiding Racing Club de Lens for a player as well. But it's the same teams that you would expect all dominating the transfers. But the amount of money being spent is absolutely negligent compared to ordinary years when clubs can spend their money. And it's because that money just doesn't exist anymore. It is all in the bank accounts of the clubs of Manchester United, who have £1.1 billion sitting there. That money isn't getting redistributed. It is just stocking up. And because Brighton don't have the TV deals and all the rest of it, the sponsorship of the likes of Manchester United and Man City, and the game doesn't really let them build up to that level either. They are not able to spend money in the same way as those big clubs can. So you can kind of expect what will happen in 22 years time when that transfer ban comes to an end. Now, I know I said at the start that I was going to go straight forward to the end of the transfer ban, but I'm just thinking about the amount of time it is going to take to simulate forward another 22 years, because I have so many leagues loaded, my computer does struggle to load them. So I think what I'll do to stop it being a week before the next episode comes out, we'll go forward 10 years in time, then we'll go forward 12 years in time, and that will be the end of the transfer ban. So that'll be an exciting time to take a look at. So next time we'll go forward 10 years. I'll try and get through things a bit quicker, but let me know if there are things that you would like me to take a look at if I haven't in this episode. Drop a like on the video if you're still enjoying this experiment. The more you click that like button, the more other people see the experiment and get involved in it as well. Make sure to follow me on Twitter if you don't, link in the description, and subscribe if you want to see the next part in a few days time. But until next time, see ya.